Charles Sanders Peirce, The Architecture of Theories. Imagine if the laws of nature, gravity, electromagnetism, the very constants of the universe, weren't fixed at all. Imagine if they, too, had a history. If they evolved over time, much like living creatures. That's the radical vision Charles Sanders Peirce put forward in 1891, in his essay The Architecture of Theories. Today, we're diving into this remarkable work, exploring how Peirce reimagined scientific laws, challenged mechanical determinism, and opened the door to a new kind of pragmatic metaphysics, all while grappling with big questions about chance, evolution, and the nature of truth. Setting the stage. The Architecture of Theories appeared in the Monist, part of a series where Peirce was working out his ideas at the intersection of philosophy, science, and metaphysics. This essay is less about the mechanics of science and more about the philosophical architecture that supports it, hence the title. For Peirce, the most important starting point is this: uniformities in nature, the patterns and laws we observe, are themselves facts that demand an explanation. It's not enough to say that's just how the universe is. He tells us, law is par excellence the thing which wants a reason. In other words, the very existence of consistent laws is something that has to be accounted for. Uniformities and evolution. Peirce's bold claim is that these uniformities, whether it's the law of gravity or the rules of thermodynamics, are not eternal and unchanging. Instead, they are the results of evolutionary processes. Just as species change over time, adapting to their environments, the laws of nature have developed through a kind of cosmic evolution. Think about gravity for a moment. Most of us learned it as a fixed principle, a force that has always worked exactly the way it does now. But in Peirce's view, gravity may have emerged gradually, its precise form shaped by a long historical process. The regularities we take for granted are, in his words, results of evolution. The limits of mechanical evolution. Now, this brings Peirce into direct disagreement with Herbert Spencer and others who tried to explain evolution purely in mechanical terms, as the unfolding of deterministic laws. Peirce saw a flaw here. Exact law, he wrote, obviously never can produce heterogeneity out of homogeneity. If you start with perfect sameness, deterministic mechanics can only give you more sameness. And yet, in our universe, we see the opposite: life becoming more diverse, forms becoming more complex, systems becoming richer over time. For Peirce, mechanical laws are reversible, and that reversibility can't account for the forward-moving, irreversible growth we see in nature. Something else is at work. The role of chance and spontaneity. That something else is chance, what Peirce calls absolute spontaneity. This is the introduction of genuine indeterminacy into the workings of nature. He argues that an element of randomness is essential for evolution to occur. Without it, nothing truly new could emerge. We can make sense of this today by thinking about genetic mutations. They are random events, but without them, evolution would grind to a halt. In Peirce's cosmology, this principle applies not just to living organisms but to the universe itself. Randomness injects novelty, and novelty allows the laws of nature themselves to evolve toward a pragmatic metaphysics. From here, Peirce moves toward what we might call pragmatic metaphysics, the idea that concepts, including truth itself, should be evaluated based on their practical consequences and their ability to guide successful action over the long term. In his view, truth isn't a static, once and for all certainty. It's a goal, something we approach through ongoing investigation, refined by evidence and corrected by future discoveries. This means that what we call true today may be improved upon tomorrow, and that's not a weakness in science, it's the very source of its strength. Critics have pointed out a challenge here. One notes that Peirce opens the door to a pragmatic metaphysics while at the same time committing the error of subordinating truths and reality to the long run of inquiry. The concern is that for urgent, real-world problems, this long-run perspective may not be practical. But for Peirce, the slow grind of truth-seeking is the only path that ensures stability over time. Why this matters in everyday life? Now, you might be wondering, why should any of this matter to us in daily life? Well, if we accept that the laws of nature evolve, we begin to see reality not as a fixed machine but as a living process. That encourages flexibility, openness to change, and an adaptive mindset, qualities essential in science, technology, and even personal decision-making. In medicine, for example, recognizing that systems evolve pushes us toward treatments that can adapt as diseases adapt. In technology, it means building resilient systems that can handle unforeseen events. In both cases, embracing the role of chance and change makes us more capable of responding to the unexpected. Critiques and challenges. Of course, Peirce's framework isn't beyond critique. The long run of inquiry approach may be ill-suited to situations where decisions must be made immediately, without the luxury of decades, or centuries of testing. Another critique is that Peirce may not have fully escaped the philosophical framework of Immanuel Kant. Some argue that until pragmatism breaks free from Kantian constraints, its metaphysical ambitions will remain qualified, conditional, and ontologically subordinated. In short, Peirce's system might still be tied to the very traditions it seeks to transcend. Peirce's lasting legacy. The architecture of theories remains a fascinating vision of the cosmos, a universe where laws are born, grow, and adapt, where chance plays a creative role, and where truth is always a work in progress. Peirce invites us to see science not as the cataloguing of eternal facts but as a living, evolving dialogue between inquiry and reality. That's a humbling and liberating thought, and one that still challenges us, more than a century later, to remain open to change, attentive to chance, and committed to the long, collective journey toward truth. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to keep updated on our upcoming content.